Norman Solomon. He'll be speaking about what to demand from electeds and how to demand it. He's the co-founder, national director of rootsaction.org, and executive director and founder of the Institute for Public Accuracy. He is the author of a dozen books, including War Made Easy and most recently, War Made Invisible. Thank you so much, Norman, and go ahead and take it away.
Well, thanks to everybody making this event possible. We know that organizing is crucial. We know that we're now in a concentric series of crises from local areas to nationwide to global. And organizing and activism, of course, will be key. Nothing will be handed down to us. We can't depend on elected officials. We're going to have to do it ourselves to build movements. That's the history of this country, and that's the history we will need to create. I'm going to talk about some aspects of how movements ought to, I believe, interface, interact, deal with elected officials. And to generalize with some blessed exceptions, I would say that we're too damn nice. We're too deferential, and we have not been assertive enough as movement organizations, even as constituents, as individuals. Quite often, there's a tendency to be so appreciative of the good things that a member of Congress does, for instance, that when there are terrible things done through voting, through rhetoric, and so forth, there's a tendency to just give her or him a pass. We have seen the consequences of that sort of approach. Right now, when we have whatever you want to call it, an autocratic, a neo-fascistic, an authoritarian president and regime in the executive branch, many, countless thousands of people who are constituents have gone to Democrats in Congress and they've said, for God's sake, wake up, do something. This is not a normal bipartisan inter-party struggle going on. This is a struggle for democracy. And a very common refrain coming back from the elected Democrats is, oh, don't talk to us. Talk to the Republicans in Congress. They're the problem. There are huge flaws in that response. It's basically politician talk for bug off, go away, stop bothering me. The reality is that not only half of the population of this country lives in a state with 2 Democratic senators, but a large majority of progressives, of Democrats, of those who are not right-wing, the vast majority of us live in states with 2 Democratic senators, and quite likely we're also represented by a Democratic House member. And so when any of them say, oh, we're not the problem, go talk to Republicans, it's a brush off that even in practical terms doesn't make any sense, because you're not able to send an email to a member of the House and Senate unless you're constituent. You'll be blocked otherwise. So that's one problem. If you call a member of Congress, the first thing that the staff person will want to ascertain is whether you're a constituent. And if you're not going to get anywhere at all. So I think that's a crucial don't take no for an answer. It's a crucial way to insist this is a country in dire peril in terms of domestic policy and the world in terms of foreign policy. When we look at the foreign policy problems, they are huge, as we are aware, and we're going to hear about later tonight. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party has, I think, more than ever in recent years, fashioned itself as a war party. I'm not saying the war party, because there are now 2 major war parties more clearly than ever. One of our action handles, you might say, is not only the traditional ways of calling and writing and sending faxes and emails and so forth, and petitioning for that matter, all good, which is the fact that large numbers of convenient congressional offices are located very near where we live. And I think it's hidden in plain sight. I mean, the federal government has conveniently provided to us well over 1,000 House district offices around the country. And unless we live in a rural area, we live pretty damn close to one or more of those district offices. And it's a real omission, I think, to consider how rarely There are picket lines up at district house offices, at home state offices of senators. It's right there. We can do it. It's amazing what a few people picketing consistently in front of an office will do because, after all, as flawed, to put it mildly, as this semi democratic lowercase d system is, these folks are concerned about being reelected. And already next year is going to be obviously the midterm elections, a third of the Senate, all of the House up for reelection if they're going to run again. So I really would urge people to really mull over how can we mobilize? It's not the be all and end all, but how can we mobilize to create tremendous visibility to pressure the members of Congress where we are ostensibly constituents who they are responsive to. And I'm not going to go through, at least attempt, I'm not even going to attempt to go through a litany of the problems that we're facing, the oligarchy, the environmental destruction, misogyny, the xenophobia, the militarism that is worse than ever. And when the Democrats in Congress tell us they're doing all they can, that's absolutely false. The senators in the minority can grind the Senate to a halt in many ways. The Democrats in the House are talking about a house on fire, literally and figuratively, in terms of the freedoms in this country that have remained, and yet they are speaking in modulated tones. If the building that you're in, if your home, if your workplace is on fire, you don't say, I think we have a problem. You yell and scream. You insist that there be a very immediate response to put out the fire. And yet we're not getting that kind of urgency from except a few members of Congress. And we have to insist that that's going to change. It's all about, of course, movement building. And it's all about, to return back to where I started, to not deferring to members of Congress or governors or elected officials as though there's some kind of royalty. It's become a truism and a slogan, the president is not a king, which is certainly the case. But often it's easy to lapse into treating a member of the House and Senate who we might encounter as some kind of royalty. That's completely wrong. It's a cliche, but it's true. They work for us. They're supposed to work for us. And at rootsaction.org, we've tried to be part of that movement building now for a dozen years. And along with going to teachinnetwork.org for the Teach In Network, I do urge you, if you haven't already signed up, to go to rootsaction.org to get action bulletins. One aspect that you'll find on that website is something called DIY Roots Action. It's at the top, it's one of the top tabs. And you can create your own petition and you can target it for certain areas. And once you have accumulated the signers for whatever petition you create, then you have the capacity to message them ongoing. Hopefully, hundreds or even thousands of people who respond to your petition, and then they can be getting your communications and you can organize with them on that basis. So I think that DIY Roots Action is a good resource. Finally, we ought to be primarying these members of Congress. It's not just about the general election. We've seen that we have many members of Congress, not enough, but many who are there because they were willing to primary incumbent Democrats. There's AOC, there's Ro Khanna, there's others who were told, no, you can't challenge that Democrat because they do something good. Ayanna Pressley is another of them. And they were told, don't try it. You're disrupting party unity. The Republicans are so bad. We've seen that the Democratic Party in Congress is just failing to rise to the moment. There are very few members of the House and Senate who have, and we need to insist that they do.
Thank you so much, Norman. We do have several questions for you we can try to get through really quick. First, just a quick shout out. Marjorie King says they did this morning, had a big rally at their Republican representative's office just this morning. And
Right.
several people from Raul Grijalva's district was there as well, who recently passed away. So I worked in Arizona for a while, and I love that they're really active there. So thank you, Marjorie. Another question. What else can we do besides sign a petition and donate what do you think is the number one thing people could do right now, besides just sign a petition?
Well, I'd say there are a lot of number one things that people can do. Folks, of course, have a lot of different skills, interests, capacities, willingness, or comfort level. And we might think of it as a ladder. Start at a rung that you're comfortable with and try to climb it. No individual is going to change this. No few number of people, but a lot of individuals and few people working with a lot of other individuals and few people. That's where it's at. And I think that communities, wherever we are, is really crucial, because if we go to Washington, D.C., and we denounce members of Congress, for instance, that's good. But it's going to be way amplified if we do it where we live, if we do it through our local daily and weekly newspapers, to the extent we can get through those cracks in the walls, whatever independent media outlets exist in our areas, social media that can be targeted, and to organize, if possible, certainly neighborhood by neighborhood or even block by block, because we're building a long-term movement, and that's about relationships and building organizations.
Several years ago, Roots Action was a group that very early on led the charge to impeach Donald Trump. Should we be doing that again? Is now the time to impeach him, even though the Republicans are in control?
Well, if what should be done could be done, then that would be one of many actions on the list. As a practical matter, it's an okay or perhaps informative charge and aspiration to voice. As a practical matter, it's just not going anywhere right now. It should, but you look at the people in the House and Senate and majority, for now, no way.
What should we do about Schumer? This last question. What should we do about Schumer?
Well, Schumer is a symptom of a majority of the Democratic Party in Congress who are by an old playbook. Folks may have read the interview that the New York Times published with him last weekend, and it's really horrendous. When you look at what he's saying about Israel, he's claiming that there is not genocide going on in Gaza, whereas Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch issued definitive reports last December. He claimed to know what genocide is. He doesn't, if you just read the text of the Genocide Convention. And it's good that he's being challenged for basically caving in to the Trumpist party, but he should also be taken to task for a lot of other reasons, including his support for Israel, which is a genocidal state.